You expect politicians to promise you the world, a better economy, lower taxes, the usual stuff. But every now and then, a candidate comes along who doesn't just promise the world. They promise to ban gravity, give everyone a free pony, or replace the military with cats. These aren't just empty promises, they're masterpieces of political insanity. Today, we're not looking at the politicians who lied about the budget. We're celebrating the ones who aimed for the moon. Sometimes literally. Let's begin. 1. While most mayoral candidates in the 1990s were promising trivialities like better schools or safer streets, one visionary identified the real crisis: a citywide duck deficiency. His solution was simple: introduce thousands of ducks to local parks and ponds to improve morale. You have to admire the sheer audacity. Nothing boosts civic pride quite like navigating a feathered minefield on your way to work, or having your lunch aggressively commandeered by an unstoppable army of quacking overlords. It's a bold strategy for urban renewal, to say the least. 2. In the chaotic political landscape of 1968, comedian Dick Gregory ran for president with a promise so brutally honest, it looped back around to being genius. His entire platform was, essentially, "Write me in, and I will immediately resign." He wasn't offering a better future. He was offering his immediate absence from it. In a world of politicians making promises they never keep, Gregory was a pillar of integrity. He was arguably the only candidate in history who, if elected, was guaranteed to not screw things up. 3. We've all heard the demand for less government intrusion in our lives. But one mayoral hopeful took this to its logical and utterly unhinged conclusion by proposing a constitutional amendment to ban alarm clocks. His reasoning was that true freedom means waking up whenever you feel like it. A beautiful sentiment, sure, but one has to wonder how he planned to sell this to literally every employer in the country. Imagine the economic chaos as the entire workforce simultaneously decides to sleep in for freedom. A noble, if financially catastrophic, vision. 4. Some political promises are bold. Others are just a form of career suicide. Case in point, a mayoral candidate in Texas who, in a spectacular failure of reading the room, vowed to ban cowboy boots. Let that sink in. Banning the official footwear of Texas. In Texas, that's like running for office in Wisconsin and promising to outlaw cheese. Needless to say, his political ambitions ended faster than a cheap rodeo buckle. There are some lines you just don't cross, and messing with a Texan's boots is apparently one of them. 5. Faced with the usual budget shortfalls and educational challenges, one ambitious mayoral candidate offered a revolutionary proposal: fire all the public school teachers and replace them with trained parrots. The justification was a masterpiece of flawed logic. They repeat everything, so why not let them handle education? The cost savings would be incredible, of course. But picture an entire generation graduating with a deep understanding of Polly wants a cracker, and a few random historical facts squawked between demands for seeds. Parent-teacher conferences would be efficient. I'll give him that. 6. When one candidate for governor in Oklahoma was asked about his grand vision for the state, he skipped right over boring topics like infrastructure or jobs. His big idea: using taxpayer money to build a 500-foot-tall statue of himself. Because when you think of Oklahoma's most pressing needs, a giant, publicly funded monument to one man's ego is clearly at the top of the list. He must have looked at Mount Rushmore and thought, "That's a good start, but it could use about 100% more of me." 7. During the 1980s, one mayoral candidate saw the city's pothole-ridden streets not as a problem, but as a missed opportunity for fun and fitness. His solution: rip up all the asphalt and install citywide trampolines. The logic was that it would make travel more enjoyable and keep people in shape. It's a fun idea until you imagine trying to carry hot coffee or an ambulance trying to respond to an emergency while navigating a chaotic bouncy house nightmare. Your morning commute would instantly become an extreme sport. 8. While his colleagues were busy with boring things like budgets and foreign policy, one Idaho senator was focused on a much hairier issue. He proposed officially rebranding the entire state as Bigfoot Sanctuary USA. His core belief was that the elusive cryptid needed a government-sanctioned safe space to roam free from harassment. Because clearly, the one thing holding Idaho back from global superpower status was its lack of a federally protected habitat for Sasquatch. You really have to wonder what was in the water up there that year. 9. When faced with the eternal question of how to end crime, one Wisconsin candidate offered a solution so stunningly simple, it bordered on avant-garde. His plan? To make crime illegal. Yes, you heard that right. That was the entire platform. No complicated policies, no nuanced approaches to justice reform. Just a bold declaration to outlaw the thing that is already, by definition, outlawed. You can almost picture his first day in office, signing a single piece of paper, then turning to the press and saying, "All right, folks, my work here is done." 10. Public transportation can be a real headache. So, one forward-thinking Senate candidate proposed a solution straight out of an amusement park. Replace all city buses with roller coasters. His reasoning was that they are faster, more fun, and universally loved. And he's not wrong. But imagine starting your day with a 100-foot vertical drop and a series of corkscrews just to get to your 9-to-5 job. The morning commute would be less about traffic and more about G-force-induced nausea. Productivity would probably take a slight dip. 11. It's a classic political tactic. Promise the voters free stuff. One candidate in Vermont, however, decided to skip the small-time promises and go straight for the luxury package, vowing to give every single citizen a free hot tub. When pressed on the economic feasibility of this plan, his official response was, "Don't worry about it." We can only assume this was also his strategy for dealing with the impending collapse of the state's power grid. But hey, at least everyone would be relaxed as the lights went out. 12. The 1950s gave us rock and roll, the polio vaccine, and a presidential candidate who promised to replace the entire United States military with an army of trained cats. His logic was that cats are stealthy, independent, and require very little maintenance. Unfortunately, the plan hit a snag during the training phase. It turns out that while cats are indeed masters of ambush, their strategic targets are limited almost exclusively to laser dots, sunbeams, and unattended plates of tuna. 13. And now, for what might be the most deliriously ambitious campaign promise in human history. One presidential candidate vowed to physically relocate the entire country onto a massive, custom-built floating island. When asked why, his response was a dismissive, "Land is overrated." You have to admire the sheer, unadulterated madness. Because nothing screams global superpower and economic stability quite like turning the United States into a real-life version of the movie Waterworld. Good luck with that, buddy. 14. In the early 2000s, while most politicians were just figuring out email, one Senate candidate was already living in the 22nd century. He promised to deliver nationwide Wi-Fi to every citizen, powered by high-tech lasers shot directly from the moon. Because why bother with messy, earthbound fiber optics when you can bounce a signal off a celestial body? It was a bold vision that made you wonder what his other policies were. Streetlights powered by black holes? A public transit system based on teleportation? 15. How do you prove you're fit for office? Through rigorous debate and sound policy. Not according to one candidate. He believed the ultimate test of leadership was to publicly wrestle a bear. His campaign slogan was simple and direct. If I can take down a bear, I can take down corruption. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's a refreshingly straightforward approach. It's probably more believable than half the economic promises that come out of Washington, and definitely more entertaining to watch. 16. In 1988, a Senate candidate made the boldest of promises. He would completely eliminate all traffic jams. His groundbreaking plan to achieve this transportation utopia? Get rid of all stop signs and traffic lights. He genuinely seemed to believe that if drivers just trusted in the universe and themselves, they could navigate complex intersections through sheer force of will and positive thinking. As you might expect, this vision of Zen-like voluntary traffic coordination didn't quite resonate with voters. Spoiler alert, he lost. 17. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and thought, you know, that moon is just obnoxiously bright? No? Well, one Arizona candidate did. He ran on a promise to pass a law officially dimming the moon. The technical specifics were vague, but it didn't matter. This was a man who believed he could take on the entire solar system with the legislative power of a municipal zoning committee. You have to admire that level of confidence. He was ready to serve a celestial body with a strongly worded ordinance. 18. Tired of the constant threat of parking tickets? One city council candidate felt your pain. He vowed to make all parking violations legal, with one small catch. The driver had to leave a really good excuse written on a note on the windshield. This policy would have effectively turned traffic cops into literary critics, forced to weigh the legal ramifications of a poorly parked sedan against a heartfelt note that just says, "Sorry, I was really craving tacos and it was an emergency." The potential for chaos is truly beautiful. 19. Have you ever gazed upon a giraffe and thought to yourself, you know, that animal is just absurdly tall? Well, one city council candidate certainly did. His signature campaign promise was to pass legislation to legally shorten all giraffes. No, he never specified how he planned to achieve this zoological marvel, whether through government-mandated surgery or simply asking them politely to scrunch down. Based on this line of thinking, we can only assume his next political battle would have been against ladders for being unnecessarily high. 20. Back in the 1950s, one wildly ambitious candidate for governor swore to ban gravity. You read that correctly. His exact words were, "We have let gravity control us for far too long." He spoke of it not as a fundamental force of physics, but as an oppressive tyrant that needed to be overthrown. There was no follow-up on how he intended to enforce this universal law. Perhaps special anti-gravity police would issue fines to people who tripped and fell? One can only imagine the administrative nightmare. 21. And now, for a promise that ventures into the territory of pure, unadulterated psychological warfare. A mayoral candidate once pledged to ban all mirrors from the city. His reasoning? Too many people waste time looking at themselves. Forget fixing roads or lowering crime. This man's priority was to save you from your own vanity. Imagine the sheer chaos of an entire population trying to get ready for work in the morning with no reflective surfaces. Good luck checking if you have food in your teeth before that big meeting. 22. Some politicians champion education, others fight for healthcare. And then there was the guy who fought for mandatory roller skates. In the 1980s, a mayoral candidate proposed that every citizen be required to wear roller skates at all times, to make people faster. It's a visionary plan for a city of speedsters right up until the first rainy day when the entire population collectively wipes out. Emergency rooms would have instantly become the hottest and most crowded nightlife spot in town. 23. Natural disasters? According to one gubernatorial candidate, they're just a matter of attitude. This particularly confident politician vowed that, if elected, he would eliminate all tornadoes by punching them. He didn't offer a meteorological strategy or a scientific plan. No, his entire severe weather policy was based on solving atmospheric disturbances with raw, physical aggression. You almost have to admire the sheer, unblinking confidence, even if it is completely insane. 24. Ever feel like your city is missing a certain clandestine flair? One mayoral candidate agreed. He promised to construct a vast network of secret underground tunnels beneath every neighborhood, allowing citizens to move around like Cold War spies. Because why sit in traffic when you can be crawling through a dark, government-funded tube to get your groceries? It's a bold solution for people who find conventional sidewalks and roads far too exposed and predictable. 25. If you think the legal system is intimidating now, one sheriff's candidate had an upgrade for you. He wanted to replace all human judges with lie detector robots. Imagine standing trial, your fate being decided not by a jury of your peers, but by a cold, metallic box with a glowing red eye. Objection, Your Honor, would be met with a synthesized voice stating, "Irrelevant. Deception detected." Welcome to the courtroom of Robo-Judge 3000, where justice is swift, emotionless, and utterly terrifying. 26. Worried about low voter turnout? A mayoral candidate in New York had a simple, if ethically dubious, solution. Turn election day into a city-wide raffle. Every person who cast a ballot would be entered to win a brand new car. Forget poring over policy debates and candidate histories. Campaign ads would just be a picture of a shiny new sedan with the slogan, "Vote for Johnson," and you could drive home in this Tesla. It's a bold attempt to bribe an entire city into civic engagement. 27. Ohio, 1978. A mayoral hopeful ran on a single, deeply personal issue. He wanted to ban all public whistling. His reasoning? He just found it personally annoying. That was it. No grand vision for economic reform, no plan for urban renewal. Just a deep-seated vendetta against people who have the audacity to be cheerful in public. You have to wonder what his stance was on humming or skipping. Somewhere, a Disney sidekick just keeled over from the sheer stress of it all. 28. Most city planners focus on improving things like sidewalks for pedestrians. But one mayoral candidate in the 1990s looked at sidewalks and saw only wasted potential. His solution was to replace all of them with airport-style moving walkways. His vision was a city where no one had to exert themselves to walk down the street. It's a fun thought until you picture the slow-motion chaos of rush hour, with everyone trapped on a conveyor belt, moving at a leisurely 1 mile per hour. 29. Crime prevention is a serious business, which is why some solutions are deadly serious and others are just colorful. One New York mayoral candidate suggested that all convicted criminals should be painted in bright, neon colors. The logic was that it would make them easier to spot in a crowd. You have to admit, it would certainly add a unique flair to law enforcement. Just imagine a high-speed police chase down Broadway, featuring a bank robber glowing in vibrant lime green. It's not just justice, it's a fashion statement. 30. Facing a housing crisis, one innovative San Francisco politician offered a bouncy solution. He swore to legalize living inside giant, inflatable bouncy castles. His platform was built on the core principles that they are cheaper than apartments, fun to live in, and most importantly, earthquake-proof. While he may have a point on that last one, you have to hope you like your bedroom constantly shifting and squeaking every time a gentle breeze rolls through. Privacy would be a thing of the past in your new vibrant sea of vinyl. 31. Have you ever been personally victimized by a television network canceling your favorite show? One governor candidate felt your pain so deeply that he promised to give voters the power to bring back any canceled TV series by executive order. No questions asked. His slogan wasn't about tax reform or infrastructure. It was, because justice means Firefly gets a second season. In a world of broken promises, this is one that millions would hold him to. It's not just a policy, it's a moral imperative. 32. For most of us, the sun setting is a normal part of the day. But for one Arizona politician, it was a nightly crisis that needed to be solved. He seriously proposed launching a series of giant mirrors into orbit to reflect sunlight back onto America, effectively creating eternal daylight. Who needs sleep cycles or a functioning circadian rhythm when you can have 24/7 sunshine? Get ready for a permanent sunglasses season, because in his perfect world, the night is dark and full of missed economic opportunities. 33. If you find regular elections a bit dull, a Nevada politician had a plan to inject some raw spectacle into the process. He proposed that all political offices should be decided through annual, televised wrestling matches. Forget policy debates and town halls. The new political discourse would be settled with body slams and folding chairs. It would certainly solve the problem of low voter engagement, though the quality of legislation might suffer when the new senator is out on a 6-week injury leave after a botched suplex. 34. Some politicians fight for lower taxes. Others champion education reform. And then there was the man who fought for mandatory jazz hands in all public speeches. That's right. He wanted to pass a law requiring every elected official to use enthusiastic, theatrical hand gestures while speaking. Imagine the State of the Union address looking less like a serious political event and more like the finale of a Broadway musical. It would certainly make watching the news a lot more entertaining. 35. Have you ever looked at the Atlantic Ocean and thought, that's just way too much water? A Florida gubernatorial candidate sure did. He promised, if elected, to drain the ocean, to create more land for lucrative real estate development. He was a bit light on the details of how he'd accomplish this feat of engineering, but we can only assume step one involves standing on the beach and yelling at the tide to go away. It's the kind of thinking that's either genius or requires a medical evaluation. 36. Albert Einstein stated that the speed of light is a universal constant. One political candidate looked at that fact and said, "I can do better." He promised to pass legislation that would officially slow down the speed of light. He never explained his methods, perhaps a giant cosmic stop sign or a strongly worded letter to the universe. All we know for sure is that upon hearing this promise, physics professors across the country must have collectively clutched their chests and had a nervous breakdown. 37. What's the most pressing issue of our time? Healthcare? The economy? Not according to one Michigan mayoral candidate in 2002. His number one priority was to get Bigfoot officially recognized as an endangered species. His entire platform was built on the unshakable reasoning that he's out there somewhere. You have to admire the dedication to cryptid conservation. While other cities were fixing potholes, he was fighting to make sure Sasquatch had a safe space to roam, right next to the Loch Ness Monster and Elvis. 38. Most politicians promise better school lunches. One mayoral candidate in Minnesota, however, decided that wasn't enough. He vowed to make pizza a mandatory daily meal for all residents, by law. This wasn't just a suggestion, it was a promise of government-enforced pepperoni consumption. Imagine a future where you get a knock on the door from the authorities. "Sir, we have reports from your neighbors that you skipped pizza night. Please step outside." It's a delicious form of gourmet tyranny. 39. What's the one thing missing from American politics? According to the legendary performance artist and perennial presidential candidate, Vermin Supreme, the answer is ponies. He has famously run multiple times on a platform of giving a free pony to every single American, envisioning a bold new national economy based entirely on equine currency. But he's not just about ponies. In a stunning pivot to public health, he also proposed a federal law mandating daily toothbrushing. This beautiful contrast between utter absurdity and sensible, if authoritarian, hygiene reform is what makes him a political treasure. He's tackling America's real issues, a crippling pony deficit and rampant gingivitis. 40. And now a promise that aimed for the skies, quite literally. A mayoral candidate swore that if elected, every citizen would receive a personal jetpack for their daily commute. Imagine the morning sky, a chaotic swarm of commuters desperately trying to avoid mid-air collisions with pigeons, drones, and their boss from accounting. He offered no details on safety or fuel, presenting a bold vision for urban transport that assumed the city was willing to invest heavily in aerial ambulances and giant nets to catch falling people. 41. In the Roaring '20s, one presidential hopeful made a promise that put all others to shame. He didn't just vow to fix the economy or promote peace. He promised to outright ban death. If elected, he would use the full power of the executive office to ensure no one ever died again. Was his plan rooted in some undiscovered medical science? Highly unlikely. Was it magic? Possibly. His campaign materials were vague on the method, but bold on the outcome. Judging by current mortality rates, his signature policy hit some major snags after he unfortunately failed to win the election. 42. You think the economy is too complex? So did one presidential candidate. His revolutionary solution was to scrap the entire stock market and replace it with a national, high-stakes game of rock, paper, scissors. Picture the scene on Wall Street. Frenzied traders in $1,000 suits screaming, "Scissors cuts paper," as they gambled the entire GDP of a small nation on a single hand gesture. Financial analysis would be replaced by psychological warfare and intensive hand speed drills. It's a bold strategy that would certainly level the playing field in the most wonderfully destructive way imaginable. 43. Is the American flag a timeless symbol of liberty, or is it just not cool enough? A congressional hopeful landed firmly in the second camp. He swore that if elected, he would replace the classic stars and stripes with a brand new, infinitely more awesome design. a photorealistic image of a bald eagle wearing sunglasses and riding a Harley-Davidson motorcycle through a field of explosions. His slogan was simple and powerful: "Because America deserves a cooler flag." You can't even argue with that logic. It's the kind of high-octane patriotism that other countries can only dream of. 44. Crime is a persistent societal issue. One sheriff's candidate, however, had a final solution straight out of ancient Rome. His anti-crime platform was to make all convicted criminals fight each other in televised, gladiator-style battles to the death for a chance at freedom. His exact words were, "We'll turn prisons into reality TV." Congratulations, sir. You've not only solved prison overcrowding and reduced the corrections budget, but you've also invented the Hunger Games and secured the highest primetime ratings in the history of television. It's a win-win-win, unless you're a prisoner. 45. The national debt seems like an unsolvable problem. But not for one Senate candidate in 1996 who had the ultimate financial strategy: turn the entire national economy into one massive winner-take-all lottery. His plan was simple. Every American gets one ticket. If your number is called, you become a national hero, personally responsible for paying off the entire multi-trillion-dollar debt. If not, better luck next year. It's a stunning government policy apparently inspired by a late-night trip to a gas station for a scratch-off ticket. It's fiscal responsibility as a game of chance. 46. Ever look at a modern prison and think, this just isn't intimidating enough? A sheriff's candidate in North Carolina had a refreshingly medieval solution. He proposed getting rid of all those boring concrete walls and electric fences and replacing them with a wide moat filled to the brim with hungry, ill-tempered alligators. Why waste taxpayer money on high-tech surveillance when you can harness the raw, toothy power of nature's perfect killing machines? The prison escape rate would likely drop to zero. The local duck population would also be decimated, but that's a small price to pay for security. 47. Soup. A harmless, comforting meal, right? Wrong. According to one 1950s gubernatorial candidate, soup was a liquid menace to society. He ran on a hardcore anti-soup agenda, vowing to pass legislation banning all forms of it statewide. No chicken noodle, no chowder, no tomato bisque, no broth-based abominations of any kind. This man had a deep, personal vendetta against spoon-delivered meals. One can only wonder about his tragic backstory. Did a bowl of minestrone steal his car? Did a vengeful gazpacho wrong him in a past life? The world may never know the source of his soupy rage. 48. Topping all other promises for sheer architectural audacity, a 2012 presidential candidate vowed to construct a massive, climate-controlled dome over the entire United States. His vision was a completely sealed-off utopia with no bad weather, no pesky insects, and no foreign threats. He was essentially promising to turn the country into one giant, government-run snow globe. It's a comforting thought, until you realize you'd be living inside a real-life version of the Simpsons movie, with the government holding the thermostat and deciding when it's sunny. The ultimate nanny state. 49. And finally, we have the greatest act of political trolling in American history. A man in Louisiana legally changed his name to none of the above and then ran for public office. His entire strategy was to capitalize on voter frustration, tricking disgruntled citizens into accidentally choosing him on the ballot. It was a brilliant, cynical masterpiece. And the wildest part, it almost worked. In one election, he received thousands of votes, nearly winning the race and proving that sometimes the most appealing candidate is the one who represents the complete rejection of all other options. So there you have it. 49 promises so insane you have to wonder if they were brilliant or just required a medical evaluation. But here's a thought. Are these really any more ridiculous than some of the polished, focus-grouped promises we hear today? I want you to prove me wrong. Tell me the single most absurd, unbelievable political promise you've ever heard in your lifetime. Don't be shy. Let's see if modern politics can even compete. If you enjoy questioning the sanity of our elected officials, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more madness where this came from. And giving this video a thumbs up tells the algorithm that logical, boring content is officially overrated.